Welcome to the Reader Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by Reader House Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. There's a true story told in the new book written by Hope Shepard and Jack Shepard. The book's titled Ransom, The Medical Mystery That Stole Our Son and the Fight to Get Him Back. I get to find out more about this book. The co-authors, Hope and Jack, are with me now. Hope, Jack, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to have you on the show, and I'm very curious about Ransom. Can you tell me all about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is the true story about our journey finding a diagnosis and treatment for Jack. I was really inspired to write this book to raise awareness and help other families. And around Jack's third birthday, he got a virus, and after the virus subsided, he had an overnight behavior and personality change. And at the time, we didn't know what was going on. We thought maybe it was a phase. We thought maybe it was because we were expecting another baby and it was behavioral. And as time went on, he would function typically for weeks or months at a time, and then he'd have what we came to call flares, where his pupils would be very dilated. He would have vocal and motor tics, such as throat clearing and skipping back and forth. And he would get very violent, which was very out of character for him. And there was just no reasoning with him during these episodes. And over time, we realized he would often have little to no recollection of these episodes. And finally, we've made the connection that they would come on the heels of a virus or some type of allergen.
Once you started on this book, Hope and Jack, was this a long process to get it written and published?
Yeah, it took about 6 months to write, about 2.5 years to edit. So the editing process was long, but I did have some notes and journals and things like that made it easier to compile. But I would say the first draft took me about 6 months to get through.
And Jack, your mother's writing this book all about you. You're contributing to it. What was your take on all of this?
Well, I was really happy that it could, help other people and we can share our journey with the world. I think a lot of people just don't know really what even PANDAS is. And so it's so great to be able to share the story with the world and possibly help other families.
In that moment, whenever the first copy finally comes in and you get to hold your book for the first time and look at it, Hope, Jack, what were your reactions to this? What was that moment like for you?
It was just so rewarding to see it come to life. I love seeing the cover and just actually holding the book, seeing it, and you're just picturing it as you're writing it, and just seeing it come to life is really rewarding.
I agree. It was such a surreal and great feeling to see the book and see it actually being developed and made and out in stores.
And what would each of you find the most challenging part of the publishing process? There's so much involved in that, so many hoops to jump through, and usually takes a while. What did you find challenging about that?
I think it's challenging to find the right agent and publisher. This book is a lot about my faith, and I found a lot of agents didn't really like that. So when I went, I found my publisher. They're a Christian publisher. They have been really great to work with, and I think the hardest part is just finding that agent and publisher who will believe in your work and where it's a good fit. And I say the biggest part is to not give up when you don't hear back or get rejection, to just keep going because someone will appreciate your work.
I think so many people are going to be blessed by this story, and I encourage everybody listening to seek it out. Again, the name of this book is Ransom, The Medical Mystery That Stole Our Son and the Fight to Get Him Back. This is co-authored by Hope Shepard and Jack Shepard, and is published by Covenant Books. So, of course, you can get it anywhere like on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble and iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Hope, Jack, it was really great meeting you here tonight and talking about this book. I had a really nice time. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
The book I'm looking at right now is all about following your dreams. It's written by Ernest Pointner, and it's titled Thank You, Canada, for 30 Years of Adventure and Inspiration. And I get to find out more about this book. The author, Ernest, is with me now. Ernest, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here with me tonight.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm excited to learn all about Thank You, Canada. Can you tell me about it?
Yes. As a young man with 18 years, not a word of English or French, or I didn't know anybody in the whole country. I was just eager to get out into the world and experience different things, learn another language, another culture, and lots of adventure and whatever the country will offer me.
And what motivated you to write your story and publish it?
Well, for 22 years, my friends and relatives, they encouraged me to write a book, which I refused. And after that many years, 1 year before I retired with 74 years, I finally sat down and wrote the book, and it took me 2 years.
So you've never done anything like this before. What was it like then when you finally got that first copy in Ernest and you got to hold the physical version of Thank You, Canada?
Yes, of course. I was pretty excited to hold a book in your hand. That's your accomplishment, a sense of pride. It was a great feeling.
Ernest, what sorts of readers do you think would really be into Thank You, Canada?
I would think young and also older people who have friends, relatives that also immigrated to Canada or to other foreign countries. They can relate to my story from a young man who dared to get out into the world from a little village in Germany, Bavaria, to not have any fears and just get out there and let it all happen to you.
And now that you are a published author, Ernest, what's the most rewarding aspect of that for you?
Well, it's pride of the accomplishment and also the compliment that one gets either through emails or personal on the road, on the street. So it's pretty exciting when people do talk about and know your life story from childhood, what kind of brat I was, to today's life, you know. So I'm 78 years old, and I have more energy than most of the young people that are surrounded. So I'm a very lucky man. I've experienced a lot of happiness in Canada. Why the title Thank You, Canada? Was because Canada was so great to us foreigners, to us immigrants. They gave us so many opportunities to unfold and progress, to have the opportunity to raise a family, run my own business, experience all the outdoor activity that Canada offers so greatly with fishing, hunting, camping. So it was the right thing for me to move out from a little village of 2,000 people and out into the world. And it couldn't have been a better way for me to have done that.
Well, writing the book is one thing, but then you hand the manuscript over to the publisher and you begin that publishing process. Ernest, what was the most challenging part of the publishing end of things for you?
Well, I also have a German book. Of course, I first wrote it in German and had it published here. And I don't have a publisher. I sell them all on my own by giving presentations and videos about Canada. So I have sold over 500 copies already. Wow. And then a friend of mine, she's a trained interpreter. She translated this German book into the English version. And then I approached Newman Spring publisher if they were interested in my book. And they were immediately gung-ho to do so. And we're doing fine so far.
Again, it's titled Thank You, Canada, for 34 Years of Adventure and Inspiration. It's written by Ernest Pointner and is published by Newman Springs Publishing, so go on over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll be able to pick this up. Ernest, thanks again for coming on the show and telling me all about this. I had a really nice time talking with you tonight.
Well, same here. It was a pleasure to talk to you and that you were able to call me late at night and had this great conversation. I thank you.
There's a really sweet new book that just came out. It's written by Erica A. Banks, and it's illustrated by Alana Santiago. It's titled Mama Prays, featuring the lullaby Sleep and Dream. And I get to talk all about this right now. Erica and the illustrator Alana are here with me now. Erica, Alana, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight.
Thank you for having us. We're very excited.
Thank you.
Well, I'm really excited to learn about Mama Prays. Erica, can you tell me what it's all about?
Well, Mama Prays is an homage to mothers everywhere. In our society, as I was growing up and becoming a mother myself and then a teacher for 35 years, I noticed that they focused more on differences. But then I realized that all the mothers that have been in my life and all the mothers that I have been in my students' lives have one thing in common. They all pray. And I was like, wow. So it helped me to begin to see that we're much more alike than we are different. So I thought that should be out there. People should know that. That should be focused on. So that's where Mama Prays comes from. My mother was a single mother herself, and I watched her pray for us all the time. And it struck me, when I was young, about 21 years ago, I actually wrote this, and it's developed over the years. So that's where it comes from.
Erica, is this your first time being published, or are you experienced in this whole thing?
No, I am such a novice. This is my first time. It's Alana, my illustrator's first time. And so we're very, very nervous and very shy about this. And the process was amazing, but at the same time, it was a little daunting. But I had to do this. I've been procrastinating for too long. And God just said, it's time. It's time to get it out there.
And can you tell me about the artwork, the illustrations, and how you and Alana worked?
Well, I'm going to give you a little background, then I'm going to toss it to Alana about her work. Alana and I met through my niece, whose husband was stationed in Alaska. And we met because of some pain, actually. My niece called me to help with Alana. She was struggling in Alaska. It's very isolated there. And I sat in front of my house one day for about 4 or 6 hours talking to her and encouraging her and letting her know that there's so much out there, that she's important, she's valued. And I needed an illustrator. And the Lord just said, ask her. She draws. Ask her if she would illustrate Mama Prays. So I did. And she was an illustrator. And she was like, sure, send me the transcript. So I sent her the transcript. And for a year and a half, over Zoom, over the phone, her in Alaska, me here in Maryland, we developed the illustrations. She's amazing. Alana, tell them more about your illustrations.
So the illustrations, I had this thought from a lot of the mothers around me. I saw how all these mothers had prayed differently that I saw throughout my family and my friends. And it made me really think, like, wow, her words, how much I can bring it to life.
And she really did. She took those words, and it was almost as if she reached into my mind and brought to life every single syllable, every thought. And she captured mothers, like she said, she had so many examples. Being in the military has so many people of so many different nationalities and backgrounds and faiths. So she had that at her disposal. So she was the perfect illustrator to really demonstrate and hit home the diversity of mothers, the diversity of their faith, but the commonality of their love for their children and their faith in their God, that God would help them take care of those children and watch over those children. The illustrations are just mind-boggling. It was as if each meeting, she was never satisfied. She was relentless.
I went through so many different stages of artwork with this book. I started over multiple times.
And one of the more
the right thing.
Exactly. One of the most amazing things I think about Alana's illustrations, I was mesmerized that you did this on an iPad? What do you mean?
The art is very, very beautiful, and what a wonderful book. I think so many people are going to love it too. Again, the title is Mama Prays, featuring the lullaby Sleep and Dream. It's written by Erica A. Banks, illustrated by Alana Santiago, and it's published by Christian Faith Publishing, so of course you can get it everywhere, like on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Erica, Alana, thank you so much for talking with me here tonight and telling me all about this book. It was really nice chatting with you tonight.
It was our pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you for having us.
Author Josh Hellman's new book. It's titled Dara the Dove. It takes readers on a journey of courage and faith. And that's what we're going to be talking about here right now at the Reader House Author Roundtable. The author, Josh, is with me. Josh, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you, and I'm excited to learn all about Dara the Dove. Can you tell me what readers will find here?
Yeah, so basically it's a children's book about struggling with fears and overcoming them, and then using encouraging words to help guide people and what the power of those encouraging words and how they can lift us up over our fears.
What sorts of readers were you writing for here?
Any kids from basically 0 to about 12 years old.
I love this message. Josh, what inspired you to write this? How'd you get the idea?
So me and a couple friends were just talking about different ideas. I own a media company for Christian media, and a friend had an idea about a bird, and then God kind of gave me this idea to have it be about the dove from the Ark story in Noah, and just like tells Noah's story through the eyes of this dove.
When it comes to writing, publishing, and all of that, Josh, are you experienced in that? Have you done it before, or are you new?
I'm new to the publishing game. I have done creative writing before in my life, but nothing to where I have actually gone through publishing or written something that's out there. I do write some blogs for the media company that I own, but not a ton.
Did this take you a really long time then to write and publish and everything?
Yeah, I think it's been about a year, I think, from when I started with the rough draft and then putting in the manuscript. I'd say from when the book actually got published was probably about 9 to 10 months in total.
Then that day finally comes, Josh, and you get your physical copy in the mail. You finally get to hold Dara the Dove for the very first time. What was that like?
It was exciting. I mean, when you accomplish something, you wait that long for something that you've worked on. And now, I'm at the point where I'm hoping that everybody that reads it and gets it in their hands will be excited for it and will be able to just be touched a little bit by God's glory.
There's a lot of hoops you got to jump through in the publishing end of things. Josh, what did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
Just the endurance of, waiting. Mm-hmm. So patience in our culture isn't the best of virtues. And whenever you take a step, you want that next step to come so you can see the finished product, like what's going to happen. And even with the book being published now, it's that waiting game to just kind of see, if it's well received by readers and critics.
What are the chances we're going to see another one after this?
Well, it all depends on how the book does, but I do plan on doing a series of kids' books. I've already written 2 others waiting to be published, and I have a couple other ideas that I'd like to write.
Well, now that it's official, Josh, you're a published author. What's the most rewarding aspect of that for you?
Just that I was able to say that I accomplished something. Again, publishing isn't the quickest thing, isn't the easiest thing either. Going back and forth and just kind of saying, okay, let's change this. I think this would be better here. And I know with the children's book, it's probably not as in-depth as a full-length book, but at the same time, just being able to say, I've accomplished something and now something's out there, even for my kids to enjoy and maybe even their kids.
And a big part of a lot of children's books is the illustrations. Josh, was that an easy process?
Yeah, I think the Christian Faith Publishing, because I didn't do the pictures myself, but they provided some different templates to choose from, and I really appreciate the work that they put into it.
Do you have advice now that you could throw out there for authors who are just starting out?
Don't wait too long. If you have the opportunity and the means to go through with publishing and you've been thinking about it, just do it. Sometimes we get so worried about everything being perfect, but that's part of the process of the publishing. And now I can say, like I said, it's done and we've got the next process to go.
Oh, I think readers are really going to be into this. Again, this is titled Dara the Dove. It's written by Josh Hellman. published by Christian Faith Publishing, so it's available at Amazon and at Barnes & Noble, on iTunes, and also at traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Josh, it's been really nice talking with you here tonight. Thanks so much for coming on the show and telling me all about this.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on and taking the time to interview me.
Returning to the Reader House Author Roundtable, I'm delighted to welcome author Joan Marie. Joan, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you so much, Corey. It's so nice to be here with you today.
I just wanted to congratulate you again. You have another book that just came out titled Grammy's Treasure Hunt, Julia's Judging. So, Joan, can you tell me about this one?
Oh, I sure can. This is actually the second book in a series of 10 that I'm writing, and this one is about a typical 10-year-old girl named Julia, with one exception. She's a really good chess player. So she goes on a treasure hunt that involves a very unique and very unusual chess game on her quest to win one of life's most valuable treasures. Her knowledge of chess is a big help to her throughout the story, as you might imagine. Julia encounters a lot of fun characters. She meets a new friend, which is an owl named Wisely, and finds herself in unexpected situations where she needs to judge what the right course of action should be. She has no idea that her actions will determine if she wins her treasure of a lifetime. So built into the story is adventure, excitement, and lots of examples of good morals and values that elementary age children will understand. I hope everyone enjoys reading it.
Is there anything in particular that inspired the plot to this one?
That inspired the plot? Well, Julia actually is the name of my 10-year-old granddaughter, and my husband taught her to play chess when she was 8 years old. So what I'm trying to do, because all 10 books, one is going to be dedicated to each grandchild that I have, I'm trying to build in some of their personality traits, some of their skills, and things like that. So I think it was just her being herself that really inspired me. And chess just seemed like a very unique topic. I'm trying to make each book a unique topic so that readers will be interested to learn more. For instance, in this one, they will learn a little bit about chess along with all the fun that's going on in the book. Just trying to be a little educational and as well build in the personalities of the children.
I love it. Joan, about how long did it take you once you started on this?
When I started it, probably 6 months to write this one. I've been thinking about this for probably 5 years or so. But actually sitting down and writing it, once I got committed to putting the time aside, about 6 months, I would say.
Do you find things getting maybe a little easier? You did your first book, and now you're on to your second one, and you got quite a few more to go. So do you find the process getting a little easier as you go?
Actually, it is, because with the first one, it was just such a learning experience for me, along with writing the book. But I didn't really know about book publishing and even writing an actual book and putting it all together. Now that I pretty much have my outline, I probably will use it, the method that I use to put it together for all of the books, because it seemed to work pretty good on the first one. So I'd say, it probably is a little bit easier. And I hope as they go along the road, it just becomes easier and quicker so I can get them done sooner. 10 is a lot of books to write.
It sure is. Joan, the publishing process, there's a lot involved in there. What do you find particularly challenging about that whole publishing thing?
Not that it's challenging to me, but the time that it takes. From the time I finish writing my final draft and submit it, it could be 6 months, 8 months before it actually gets out into the world. So that to me was surprising. And so it's not so much challenging other than understanding that happens to be the process. So it could take a good year by the time I start writing till the time it gets out in the world. I think that's probably the most eye-opener for me.
Did that moment get old for you, when you get your first physical copy in? It happened to you for the first book, and that was a huge moment for you. So now you got your second book, that physical copy comes in. What was that moment like?
I would say, no, it's not getting old at all. I'd say it even gets better. I would say, if I had to sum it up in one word, it would probably be excitement. I think excitement pretty much says it all.
And was the process of getting the illustrations done and lined up, was that a smooth one as well?
It is. I happen to have a wonderful, wonderful artist that I work with, and I worked with him on the sketches for the first book and the second one, and I will probably continue to use him for all of them. He's just fantastic to work with, and he's very, very creative in addition to being talented. So I'm very lucky in that regard.
And I think readers are going to love this. I think they're going to love the whole series. Again, this one's titled Grammy's Treasure Hunt, Julia's Judging. It's written by Joan Marie, It's published by Christian Faith Publishing, so pick it up at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes and also down the street at your local bookshop. Joan, it's been really great speaking with you here again and learning about Grammy's treasure hunt. I'm really looking forward to the rest. I had a good time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Corey. It's been great spending this time with you.
The new book by author Edward Hayes is meant to inspire and challenge the mind. It's titled Crossing a Bridge Over Troubled Waters, a collection of contemporary poems, spiritual, brain teasers, relationships, personal enlightenment. And I get to find out more about this book. The author, Ed, is with me now here at the Reader House Author Roundtable. Ed, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you, Corey, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure's all mine. I'm really anxious to find out about Crossing a Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Can you tell me about it?
Yes, Crossing a Bridge Over Troubled Waters actually is part of a 3-part series because I've written 3 other books in the series. The first book in the first leg was called Spiritual Enlightenment, and this is the second series, which is called Crossing a Bridge Over Troubled Water, and the third book is in publication now. It's a love thing. Let me just talk a little bit about Crossing a Bridge Over Troubled Water. If the reader look at the cover, because I spent a lot of time in collaboration with Christian Faith Publishing cover design, and if you look at the cover, it kind of like tells the story of what the book encompasses in terms of adversity, crossing the bridge over troubled waters. All of us in some point in our life has faced adversity in our lives, whether it's loss of loved ones, family, a love relationship, money, we lost our finances or whatever. But all of us have faced some controversy or adversity in our lives. And if you get through and you cross over that bridge, over that adversity, you come out on the other side, what I like to call the golden sunshine. So that's what inspired me to write the book.
How long of a process was this for you once you sat down, got started on it, clear up until it was published?
Off and on, I would say maybe a year, 6 months, because I had so much material. So I had to kind of like put it together because I had to put some into the first book and some of the writings into this book and some of the writings I had to divvy up into the third book. So I would say altogether, maybe 2 or 3 years worth of writing.
And before these books, what does your writing background look like, Ed? Have you been doing this a while?
Actually, I always wanted to be a writer. In college, one of my minors, I wanted to be a correspondent. But what happened was I always wanted to write a novel. And funny, I don't consider myself to be a poet. But what happened is I find myself writing poetically, if that's grammatically correct. And when I looked at the second book, Crossing a Bridge Over Troubled Waters, it's kind of like a biography of my own life experiences. And I kind of like just told it like in poetic form as opposed to an autobiography where you write about this happened to me, this venue, this happened to me in that situation. So it's kind of like a biography of my life experiences. And I like to share that with the readers out there.
And being that this was so personal for you, Ed, that day came, you got your first copy in, and you got to hold your book for the very first time. What's that moment like for you?
Actually, euphoric. I said, wow. And what was euphoric about it, I couldn't believe that the cover, if you look at the cover itself, I was so enthusiastic and just so excited because the cover design people from Christian Faith Publishing, it's not all the time that you can capture, like they said, one picture is worth 1,000 words. They actually captured my essence on what I was trying to convey to the listening audience or the reading audience out there, or anyone that would pick up the book who loved poetry, a poetry enthusiast.
Well, once you handed your manuscript over to the publisher and you got that whole process started, what do you find the most challenging part of the publishing process for you?
I think putting it together in terms of to make it flow, in terms of the construct of the book itself. So that's why it was broken down like into different sections, like you have the brain teachers, you have the intellectual part, the relationship, personal enlightenment. So just the construct of putting it where it would flow, where it would read, it would be an easy reader for someone, where they could actually follow my mindset and where I was trying to go with this.
And you very well know a lot of time, a lot of hard work goes into doing something like this. Ed, for you, now, what's the most rewarding aspect of being a published author?
To see something that you wrote out there in the world and to have people say, hey, I read that and I like it. Just to have someone say to me, you're a published author. That's worth $1 million to me, actually.
Well, I think this is a book a lot of readers are going to love. Again, the title is Crossing a Bridge Over Troubled Waters, a collection of contemporary poems, spiritual, brain teasers, relationships, personal enlightenment. It's written by Edward Hayes and is published by Christian Faith Publishing, so pick it up at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or also at traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Ed, thank you again for joining me tonight and telling me about your work. I had a really nice time talking with you.
Great. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The audiobook edition of author Kathy Kite's book, Supernova, has just come out. And Kathy is joining me here at the Reader House Author Roundtable. We're going to talk all about it. Kathy, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Can you tell me all about Supernova and what readers and audiobook listeners are going to find here?
Supernova was a strange enough, just kind of a dream that I had that I brought to life. And it's about a little girl. It's her life story. She's just a normal little girl, and her mom homeschools her. And everything that she knows, she's learned from her very personal library. She never goes outside, and she thinks it's a completely normal world. And then she sees some kids playing and decides to defy her mother and sneak outside so she can meet these kids, and realizes that she has a condition that she was unaware of. Once she becomes aware of the condition, then she feels like she's a freak, and it's just her life story, and it just goes through all the trials and the tribulations of being different, and, you know, her mother trying to protect her, and then her mom gets sick, and her mom passes, and then she's forced to be part of a world that she's a complete stranger in. So far, the books have gotten rave reviews. I'm very proud of the books, and so I'm glad to have it on audiobook for those of the, I have a lot of people who are like, if it was on audiobook, I would buy it, but I don't read. And I'm not mad at them for it, so I got the audio phone.
Kathy, what kinds of readers were you writing Supernova for?
Anyone from 16 to 60, men and women. I was sure to include both some feminine and masculine issues and just life in general, because this follows Abigail's. There's 3 books. Supernova is just the first one that just kind of basically introduces all the characters, and it's just real life. I wrote about things that, I've experienced, you've experienced, men, women, children. It's just, I try to bring a very true view to life in the words.
So this came from a dream that you had, Kathy. What sparked that inspiration? What made you think, hey, this would make a really good book? I got to write this.
Well, oddly enough, I was telling a friend of mine about it. He's the author, and he's like, oh, you have to write this. And I've always written poetry and short stories and things of that nature, just, putzing around. But I had never really tried my hand at anything this serious and at this magnitude. And my children were little at the time, and so was just a snowy day, and we were all kind of stuck in the house. And just sat down and was just like, Abigail Gates was born, kind of just started it, and it just became like a movie in my head, and it just happened, and I loved it, and that's just how I figured out I'm an author and didn't know it.
So this is your first published work then?
It is, and I'm so very proud of it. It's my baby.
Wow, you should be. That's a huge deal, getting your book out there. Did this take you a long time to do, being your first one?
Oh, yeah. I started writing Supernova, the original the very first one, this one, in 2006 when my mom passed away. And I just published it the year before last. So it's taken a good 16, 18 years, something like that.
I can only imagine whenever you got that first physical copy in of Supernova and you finally got to hold your very first book, your name's on the cover and everything. Kathy, what was that like?
It was phenomenal. It was just absolutely powerful. It was very powerful because I accomplished something that was like a dream come true. We often say, man, I wish I would have, or if only. You can do it. I'm telling you, just you put your mind to anything, anything's possible.
Absolutely. Now, this is the audiobook edition of Supernova. What was it like hearing your book, Kathy, as opposed to reading it like you were used to all that time?
I cried. I'm not going to lie. I cried because I've read stories to a lot of different people, like my sisters and my kids. But to hear someone reading it to me, I was like, oh, my word, I wrote that. And I had a buddy of mine that got the audiobook last week, and he is a farmer, and he listened to it while he was disking or something, and he came into the store I work, and he was like, that's really a good book. It's a chick flick, but it's really a good book. I loved it. It was wonderful.
I think the readers and audiobook listeners are really going to be into this and the whole series, actually. Again, this is titled Supernova. It's written by Kathy Kite And this is published by the Audiobook Network, so go to wherever you usually get your audiobooks and you'll find it, like on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. How nice it's been talking with you tonight, Kathy. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you all so much for having me. I truly enjoy it, and I just hope everyone enjoys Supernova's journey as much as I enjoyed writing it.
There's an interesting exploration in the new book by Winston Langley, and it's titled Moral Courage and Truthfulness, Qazi Nazrul Islam. And we're going to find out all about this book here at the Reader House Author Roundtable. Winston is joining me. Winston, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Not at all. I'm very pleased to be with you and your audience.
It's great to be talking with you tonight, Winston. Can you tell me what readers can expect to find in Moral Courage and Truthfulness?
A number of examples of people who have exhibited leadership in the area of moral courage, that is, people who, at great expense to their lives or threat of expense to their lives, their fellow human beings, certainly relatives, their professional well-being, etc., have risked engaging in certain forms of conduct in order to elaborate some important principles of morals, as well as defend the interest of the public.
What sorts of readers were you speaking to here, Winston?
Well, a variety of sources. They can vary from the general public, because it's written in a form that will allow the general public to understand it. Throughout the book, I've tried to introduce sort of dear reader focus in areas where there may be certain explanatory requirements above and beyond what the writing may require. But the general public, it could be for people in literary criticism, because it is dealing with a play by this author, Qazi Nazrul Islam. It could be for people in political philosophy. It could be for people in political science. It could be for people in theology. It could be any walk of life that may be interested in the character of human beings as well as the character of public life.
Now, considering all the research that probably went into this, I would imagine this took you a long time to write and put together. Is that the case?
Well, I reflected on this subject area for about 3 years, and then it took me a year and a half to write. I'd already written a book on this author, but I thought his play on truthfulness was so potentially impactful and had such great relevance to the world in which we find ourselves. And often, leaders refuse to take a moral stance on anything, such stances that would make major differences to countries, to societies, to individuals, to subgroups within societies, etc. I thought it would be appropriate to bring him to greater light to the public.
And once you handed your manuscript off to the publisher, you began the publishing process. Winston, what did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
I think it was may I mention something? The first publisher to whom I sent the manuscript, the publisher said that they liked what is being said, but they do not think that they're in a position to publish this work. I was taken back. As it went through the process, it had more to do with the extent to which someone who is not from the West may be appealing to the West. But I sought to show how comparable in behavior much of what he sought to present to a number of outstanding figures from the West. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, for example. Daniel Ellsberg, for example. The mothers of the Plaza de Mayo in Argentina, for example. And by doing so, one can see parallel values, common values, which ought to be defended, and defended rather fiercely in public life.
I think so many readers are going to get so much out of this book. Again, it's titled Moral Courage and Truthfulness, Qazi Nazrul Islam. It's written by Winston Langley, and it's published by Newman Springs Publishing, so you can find it anywhere like on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble or iTunes, and also at traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Winston, thanks again for joining me tonight and telling me all about this. I had a nice time chatting with you.
Certainly, I enjoyed talking with you, and thank you for taking the time to interview me.
There's a touching testimony in author Patricia Todd's new book. It's titled, She Carried the Word. And we're going to talk all about it right now here at the Reader House Author Roundtable. Patricia is here with me. Patricia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm curious about She Carried the Word, Patricia. Can you tell me about it?
It is from Christ's mother, Mary. It is a perspective from her viewpoint as a mother. What do we know about her? She's more than just a figurine on a nativity scene at Christmas time. And it's just her journey, and it's to get the readers to really think about what she went through. It's the basis of She Carried the Word.
Where did the idea come from for this, Patricia? How are you inspired to write this book?
Well, unfortunately, I had known several women, as a matter of fact, there was 4, that had lost their children, firstborn sons, in a car accident. And I was visiting with another mother that had actually lost her son in a mass shooting in Las Vegas. And it was on my talking with her, and she asked the question, why? And my response was, I can't even imagine what Mary went through, knowing that she could have possibly stopped what was happening to her son and couldn't. And on my way home that day from my friend's home and talking about her son, these questions came to me. Who was she? Why did the angel appear to her? Why did God choose her? And in just my own circumstances, several years ago, I had almost lost my own son, my firstborn son. And it was upon finding him that day, he was actually choking and had gone into respiratory distress. He was fixing himself a deer hunting area to hunt. And I had an overwhelming feeling to get to him. It was just in my mind. I had to get to my son. And as my husband and I did, and my daughter, and he was telling me to calm down, we didn't know that anything was wrong. We found my son in his truck unresponsive, choking. And I dropped to my knees. And at that moment, I thought I'd said the most selfish prayer. I said, God, I know you gave your son for mine, but I am begging you not to take mine. And I had the most overwhelming sense of peace come over me. If anyone's never experienced it, I can't describe it to you. I have felt it on several occasions, but that was the first occasion. And it was impactful, and it just changed my thought process onto what Christ gave us. And what Mary carried for us.
Patricia, what sorts of readers were you writing for here?
My aim was for possibly mothers and fathers, that they would read this to maybe their children and to start answering the questions at a young age. Possibly, why did he choose Mary? What makes a mother so special that he would choose her? Mothers are known for their sacrifices and what they give up for their children. Times, even their bodies, 20 or 30 years after the child's born, you're still trying to lose that extra 10 pounds. So there's a lot of things and a lot of sacrifices mothers give. And I was wanting to start at a young age for children to start realizing, what we give and the examples a mother can set. Others as well, but from this standpoint, what does a mother give to that child? Mary's obviously was faith. When the angel Gabriel appeared before her, she didn't say, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. She did it. She made that choice, and she was a young girl, not yet married, but she chose to carry God's child. I can't understand the repercussions she had probably from her community at the time, how unfavorable that was, and she chose to do it. She made that choice. And as children, as a mother or as a father, we can set that example for our children to make choices in life. We can either do things God's way or our own way. And sometimes doing things our own way leads to bad circumstances.
Absolutely. I think this is a book that is really going to touch a lot of people. Again, the title is She Carried the Word. It's written by Patricia Todd, and it's published by Christian Faith Publishing, so you can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Patricia, thanks again for coming on the show and talking tonight. I had a really nice time.
Well, thank you, Corey. I do appreciate it.
It's a gripping tale of redemption and divine intervention. It's the new book by author Tony Suits, and we're going to talk all about it here. It's titled The Throwaways, Broken Fever. Tony is sitting down with me here now at the Reader House Author Roundtable. Tony, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really interested in hearing all about The Throwaways. Can you tell me about it?
Well, allegorically, the book is about the opportunity for redemption, as you said. It is about the love of our Savior Jesus Christ for the most broken people who never thought that they deserved a second chance. Specifically, the book is about three young adults who are living a life of crime and are offered a second chance when each is confronted with a critical decision that, when made, will send him or her down either a path of redemption or a path of destruction.
Tony, what kinds of readers were you writing for here?
Well, the genre I'm aiming for, I kind of coined it myself. I don't know if maybe there is this genre out there, but I call it young adult Christian fiction. I'm aiming towards adults between the ages of 15, really, I guess, and 102, because I think this is really a book for all ages. I think it is appropriately for teenagers that are a little bit older. There are some violence in the book and things like that would lend to be for older readers. But I think any adult who enjoys a story about underdogs, about people who are overcoming insurmountable odds in their lives, I think they will really enjoy this book.
So where did you get the idea for this, Tony? What inspired this story?
Well, I think most, all the stories I've written, I think are, inspired by the Lord. But this one, a lot of it has to do with some of the things that I've seen in the news, some of the things that I've read about. And some of it was just some of the things that I actually dreamed about. A lot of times when I have a certain type of dream, I'll get up, I'll wake up and write down information on that. And I put this together over several weeks, the storyline of this together after a very vivid dream that I had. And I thought that, this is something I'm really going to write about.
When you sat down, got to work on The Throwaways, Tony, how long of a process was this for you, clear up through when it was published?
The writing part was pretty easy. That one didn't take long. It took probably about 7 or 8 months to get through. But then the editing and going back over some of the work, I kind of agonized a lot over, some sentences. I agonized over certain sections. So it took me longer than I wanted, but I'm very proud of the work that I've completed.
There's so much involved in that publishing end of things. Tony, what did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
Well, first, finding the right publishing company. And then, once you find that publishing company, really putting your work out there for people to judge and to give you ideas and to edit your work. They're really, taking that constructive criticism is tough sometimes, but it's great when you can really take it and understand that it's for your benefit so that you can make the proper changes and really get your book ready for the readers.
And then that day finally comes for you, Tony, and you open up your mailbox, and there it is, your first copy of The Throwaways. And you pull it out, you get to hold this thing for the first time. What was that like?
It just felt like a great accomplishment. It was a lot of hard work, put in a lot of hours, and to see the book and then to read through it, I feel really good about the storyline and really good about what I've written. So it just feels like a huge accomplishment.
Tony, what does your writing background look like? Have you done a lot of this prior?
I wrote one other book years ago. It was a secular book, and I was able to publish that one. I thought it was fairly good at the time, and I'm still proud of that work as well. But I really felt called to write for the Lord, and I really wanted to write something that struck a chord with other people and would really be thought-provoking, and I think that this book really does that.
And you're officially a published author, Tony. To you, what's the most rewarding aspect of that?
Well, I don't know what that is yet. I'm hoping that this book is an influencing book, that it makes people think critically, thought-provoking, that really gives people something to think about in their own lives. And I'm hoping that has a really positive impact on people who read it. But I don't know what that is yet. I think it's still up for debate.
Well, this sounds like a great book. Again, the title is The Throwaways, Broken Fever. This is written by Tony Suits, and it's published by Christian Faith Publishing, so go anywhere where you normally pick up your books and you'll be able to find this, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Tony, thank you so much again for coming on the show and telling me all about this. I had a really nice time talking tonight.
I did as well, and I thank you for your time, for your questions.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Reader House Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by Reader House Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.